I sold my last company for $46.2 million. I crossed $100 million in net worth at age 32. And I just made my biggest investment ever by becoming the co-owner of Skool. And I always wanted breakdown videos from Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett and Elon Musk. What were they thinking? Like, of course they're 100 billion now, but I want to know what they were thinking at 100 million and 10 million. I want to show you what the thought process is behind the investment, and most importantly, how you can model that decision-making framework to make way more money in your life. I decided to invest in Skool and make my single largest investment to date, including putting my brand behind it and endorsing the company, because there's multiple things that are aligned in the same direction. And so Charlie Munger talks about this. He calls it the Lollapalooza effect. And so usually when you get these like massive, explosive growth opportunities, it's not because of one thing. So a lot of people want to have a silver bullet. So it's kind of like a silver bullet fallacy. It's thinking that there's this one big thing that if we just do that, then everything else will work. And more times than not, it's the 100 golden BBs, no silver bullets. It's 2, 3, 5, 6 things that all have an incremental boost, but when you multiply all of them together, create this insane outcome. And so I see that with Skool. And so let me zoom all the way back out to like the ecosystem. So this would be like big thing number one. If we look at the education industry, so let me show you some math real quick. Education globally is 10 trillion. Big. All right. US is 1.3 trillion. Still very big. Now, this is split between two things. You've got formal education, so that would be like 2-year and 4-year degrees. And right now that's around, depending on the source, 850 billion. And for those of you who Google and find out that it's 863, or in another source this is 842, it doesn't matter, because in this type of stuff that we're talking about big forces and we're talking about directional correctness. But it's around 850 billion for formal education. Now, on the other side, it's split. You've got e-learning and online education. I'll put it that alternative education, which right now is about 250-ish billion, 200 to 250-ish billion, depending on your source. All right, so close to that. Now, here's the really interesting thing about this, and this will relate to why I'm betting really big on Skool, or at least one of the reasons, is that this one is shrinking by 6% per year. Kind of interesting. This one is growing by about $40 billion per year. Now, that is because this one's growing at roughly 20% per year. So you've got this massive nut here that's shrinking by 6%, all right, which is about, what's the math here? About $50 billion is what it's losing every year. And we've got this other one that's gaining $40 billion a year and growing at 20%. So when I see these two things, and I see this big overall industry in terms of 1.3 trillion, 1.2 trillion, whatever, I see this as actually a crisscross. So formal is continuing to go down, and alternative, or e-learning, et cetera, is continuing to go up. And so it's almost the exact amount that this one loses every single year is almost the same amount that this one is gaining every single year. And so that underpins a shift in buying behavior. People are seeing more and more that formal education doesn't give the return that it was promising. And people are able to learn skills directly that can contribute to them making more money and being able to contribute in society, feed their families, pay their rents, pay their mortgages, and ultimately just live productive lives. And so if you're a hairstylist, you're like, well, you know what? The formal education thing doesn't matter, because all I have to do is like learn how to like post on Instagram, like my clients that even I do in my garage, and I get more DMs for people who want me to do that, and not a single customer's ever asked me for what my certification was. Huh. So maybe this skill is more valuable than this skill. Huh. And this girl is willing to teach me how she does it for $1,000, whereas this school is 2 years and 15 grand. Well, the ROI is not there, right? And so what's happening is a lot of this money that has been going to these big endowments, these Harvards, these big university money. Now, I do think at the top, those guys are probably protected for a while, but it's like the mediocre middle. It's CCU State, right? Like those are the ones that have 4-year degrees that don't mean anything, that no one cares about. All of that money is getting actually pushed all the way back down to the bottom to basically creators, people who are good at teaching a niche skill. They're like, hey, I did this thing, it worked well for me, here's how you can do it. And that works for anything, whether it's like you're selling to customers like, hey, I lost this weight, this is how I did it, I eat all meat all the time. Somebody else is like, I only eat plants, whatever. And if that sounds cool to you, I can show you how I did it. And so this industry is continuing to grow. So when I see this, I think, okay, huge amount of money changing hands in a very fast time zone. I'd rather be in this boat than in this boat. And so that's thing number one. So that's kind of the industry overall. Now, if you look at me personally, like how do I intersect with this? Well, the first two companies that I sold, so Gym Launch and Prestige Labs, well, I'd sold companies before that, but they were just low seven-figure numbers, not bigger numbers. Those companies service creators. And as somebody who came from first a direct response marketing background and selling media and licensing to brick and mortar gyms, I'm really familiar with this model. Like there is no university for gyms. And so I did my best to create that university for gym owners, because if you went to school for being a gym owner, you'd make a heck of a lot more money than if you just went to school for like business and then opened a gym. I have lived through this huge shift in wealth because like I started, I think when I was 27 years old, I think we took home $16 million in income, just capitalizing on this trend. And so I know that that money is out there and people are starving for information that they can actually use to feed themselves. And so I have the big trend data that I can see on the charts and the big fancy finance people, but I also have my personal anecdote of having experienced that huge amount of wealth coming towards me. So that's thing number two. Thing number three is, where do I fit in with this ecosystem? And so my audience, for the most part, is split between business owners and people who'd like to start a business. My whole mission with making the content that we do has been to make real business accessible for everyone. And so early on for me, I didn't have a lot of mentors and help. And so I just looked everywhere I could to learn this stuff. And I learned a lot of it the hard way. One of the reasons that I put this stuff out there is that also some of the sources that exist out there are just honestly false. Like they are teaching things they have not done. They're regurgitating content from other people and getting key points wrong because they don't know why it's right to begin with, and just basically leading people astray. And I actually don't think it's malicious. I think they just want the views, they want the likes, they want the ad revenue, whatever. And like, I don't blame, whatever. I would like to at least put stuff out there that I know, like I have done this and I have done it many times. And so if you follow this process, whether you're a good person or a bad person, it will probably work for you. And so my audience knows that my whole goal has been to make real business accessible for everyone. And so if we're thinking, okay, Alex, you could have promoted, I don't know, pick something, drop shipping. Like there's a lot of different things I could have done, but why Skool particularly? Well, because the mission of Skool aligns with my personal mission, which is to make real business successful for everyone. They want to, like Skool wants, myself included now, I'm a co-owner, want to make business fun and easy for everyone. And so I spent 6 months talking to the founder about like, what do you really want this to become? And he has a huge, massive vision, and his vision aligns with my vision of how big I think this space really is. If you think about all the different industries that exist, most of them have been disrupted by technology in some way. You've got like Airbnb. So hotels got attacked by Airbnb. Taxis got attacked by Uber. These are the famous examples, right? But there isn't, if you think about it, no one's disrupted education. No, like there's no one place that everyone goes to learn stuff. It's still completely fragmented. And as somebody who's been in that space and understands that space very well and sees the trends, I believe that there will be someone who will take it. And my bet is that Skool will be that company. Now, why Skool versus the zillions? So this is like, I guess, point 4, which comes down to why this particular company, this particular product. And hopefully even going through this, the thought process, you can still relate to any major decision that you have to make in your life. And so why Skool particularly? One of my big litmus tests for something, a product that I'm going to promote, is that I want it to grow on its own. Meaning, if the only way that a company grows is that it advertises, and when it stops advertising, it goes down, I don't like that. I like to have passive growth. And so let's go over here and I'll walk you through it. So there's something that I call the golden ratio in business. You have the percentage of customers who refer customers and the percentage of customers who exit. So these people exit, these people refer, And if the percentage of people who leave every month, so this is 0.1, so 10%. All right, I'll put it as percentages rather than decimals. There you go. Bear with me. If 10% of my customers refer me a new customer every month, and 10% leave every month, then my business will stay the same. Now, if 20% of my customers refer me a customer every month, and the same 10% exit, my business over whatever this interval of time is will 2x, 2 over 1. And that means that no matter how big I get, the business will consistently double every one of those time intervals. And so I look very carefully at what percentage of customers decide to bring other customers to the business and what percentage are leaving or choosing not to buy again. And this works whether you're selling physical products, it works whether you're selling software, it works whether you're selling services, it works the same way. And so this golden ratio of percentage of referrals over percentage of people who leave or churn is what tells you the passive growth rate of a business. Now, the vast majority of businesses, they've got, let's call it, 2% of people are referring, and they've got, 10% of people that are leaving. And so they have to fill this bucket up with ads or marketing or outreach or whatever it is that they have to do to fill up the top side so that they just don't lose everyone over time. And that's because they don't understand how to build a good product. Now, once you have a company that does this and does have more people who refer than leave every month, that is when this is a flame. That's when you pour gas on this thing and you say, okay, now I want to tell the world about it so that that number of doubles, it just goes dot, 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 and then it doubles off the chart. And then you add even more and then doubles again off the chart because you're just increasing the N as fast as you can so that the doubling happens on a bigger amount of customers. So when I saw Skool's metrics, I was blown away. I had never seen a company who had metrics as good as Skool. I've never in my history of looking, and we look at a lot of businesses. We get, several thousand businesses a month that reach out at acquisition.com for investment and for us to buy, a minority or majority of the business. And so I've looked at a lot of business metrics. And so when I saw the passive growth rate that Skool had, it really intrigued me. And so that business underlying fundamentals were there. The mission of the fact that it wanted to make business online easy and fun. And it starts right now in the education space. Like all of those things made it really, really a good fit for me. Now, let's talk about enterprise value stuff. So, number 5. I am here to make money. And so I like to have my altruistic goals to make real business education accessible for everyone. But guess what? We have a lot of people work at this company, a lot. And unfortunately, you guys, want to eat, feed yourselves, have girlfriends and boyfriends, and I have houses and cars. Damn you, right? And so these guys need money. Unfortunately, I would do this for free, but they need money. And so money is obviously a component of any business. So let me walk you through the difference here. So let's say that I have a traditional business, number 1. So let's call this a service business. And let's say, I'm just going to use simple math here. All right, I'm going to try not to do too much math because I know everyone hates math, right? Which, by the way, get over that because if you want to make money. But let's say that we've got a $10 million business that does top line and it does $3 million in profit. Okay, cool. Now, a traditional service business like this might be a $15 million business. So that's just giving a 5 times multiple to the business, which, by the way, that's how businesses are valued, is usually a multiple of earnings. And so, cool, this is a $15 million company. Now, if I double this company and go from 10 to 20 and 3 to 6, then this becomes a $30 million business, more or less. Might get a little bit more, maybe get 6x because it's a little bigger. But more or less, I have this delta that I can add to the business. Now, if I had an e-commerce business, my multiple might be on top line, but it might be a little bit higher. So if it was the same numbers, 10 and 3, then this company might trade at, call it 2 times top line. So this might be a 2 times top line business, 2x in terms of how it's valued. So this might be a $20 million business at baseline. And again, if I double this business, then it goes to $40 million. Okay, well that went from increasing by 15 million to increasing by 20 million. So if I owned this business, me putting the same effort in, I would make more money. Neat. Now let's look at this third piece, and then I'm going to tie this together for you. let's say we have a tech/software business. And these businesses trade, and all of these trading multiples depend on all the fundamental business economics. I'm trying to keep this really simple and high level because I want the decision-making process to be the highlight more than the individual numbers, all right? But if a business, again, is $10 million top line and $3 million of profit, let's say, they might get somewhere between 10 to 20x their top line. And so this might be somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 to $200 million. Now, let's say I double this business and we go from $200 to $400 million. Well, then we created $200 million in value. So we created $15 million by doubling this one, $20 million by doubling this one, $200 million by doubling this one. So if you're going to put effort somewhere and it's the same amount of work, you get more for what you put in. And that's fundamentally like the acquisition.com logo is about leverage. So like it looks like this is our logo. And that's because this is a lever. And the main point there is that you get more for what you put in. And so one of my big things in life, the reason we've been able to move quickly in terms of accumulating material wealth is making sure that when we make the move, we get the most for it. And so obviously I've spent 4 or 5 years building an audience and not really promoting anything or any of the companies that I own. But this one felt too close to what so many people needed, which is they wanted a way to make their first business. They want to make a way to make their first dollar online. For me, the mission was aligned. They want to make it fun and easy for everybody, just like I want to make business successful for everyone. It had the fundamentals of the big market behind it, so it's moving in the right direction. I'm on the right wave. And the business itself was sound. It was a really good product. So I felt, for my brand, that if I'm going to promote something, it had to be really good. Because if people say, I'm only trying this because of Alex, and they get in there and it sucks, who do they think sucks? Me. I'm the one who introduced them, right? Like if you had a friend who's like, oh, you got to use Sally. She's a great hairstylist. And you go and Sally just gives you a buzz cut and puts your hair as blue. And you're like, but I wanted my hair to be red, right? Forget the buzz cut. You'd be upset. You'd be like, Sally, what the hell? This person's crazy, right? And so you'd be upset at the person who referred you. And so to the same degree, I had to take this even at a higher level because I'm also a business owner. So like I've been referred companies and I'd be like, oh, it's pretty good. Obviously there's things they could improve, but like I know that the internet has a short memory and has low forgiveness. And so I had to make sure it was something that I could really get behind, which is why it's honestly, I've been looking for something that I could get behind for years. There's just nothing that met the standard that I have for you guys, honestly. I got very excited about that. And so after 6 months, we decided to do the deal. And I talked about this big decision that I was going to make in an earlier vlog, where it's like my $1 billion decision. It was about Skool, was whether or not I was going to invest in Skool, and specifically also promote it and like actually talk publicly about it. But it felt too big and like it would help too many people for me not to do it. And so that was ultimately why I made the decision. Now, if you're listening to this, I have 2 camps, right? We have business owners and we have people who want to start a business. And so I want to share some cool metrics, at least they get me very excited about this and for the future, that if you want to start a business, even if you have a business, that you'll find interesting and that could probably make you money, all right? Because now I'm a co-owner of the platform, I have access to a lot of information that other people don't have. And so we ran something that we wanted to call the Skool Games. And so this was something that Sam and I came up with together. We were like, how do we make this fun? Like, how do we make this cool? And so we're like it has to be something more than just try this out, right? And so we're like, well, what if we gave away what everyone else charges for? Which is usually my like go-to, like how do I look at what everyone else charges for, make it better, make it free. Like that's been I'll write that process out. Like, look what everyone else is charging for, make it better, make it free. All right, like if you want to get customers, that's the playbook. Now, so with the Skool Games, what we did was I said, okay, what does everyone else give away? Oops, Skool Games. Well, most people have like coaching calls, whatever you want to call it. So people charge for that. They have courses, right? They have courses they put inside, all right, and they charge for that. They have a community. These are all C's, that's kind of nice. They have a community that they have involved there. And then I want to have another one. So I'm gonna, I want to keep it to C's, but so they have code, which is realistically they have tools, right? So they have tools that they give people, right? And so it's like, okay, if someone has expert help, they have do-it-yourself training, they have support from other people doing the same thing, which this also builds out there. Here's another C for you. Builds their conviction. Because in the beginning, making your first dollar online, so little of it has to do with making their first dollar, and so much of it has to do with getting out of your own head, which is why a lot of people who are trying to get into business start with personal development first, because they have to get through all their fears of rejection and why their dad didn't love them and why they're doing this to begin with and what's my passion, blah, 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 right? All you got to do is make $1 and then you're in business, just FYI. So these are all the things that people charge for, and we're like, okay, well, let's just make it free. And so that's pretty much what the Skool Games was about. It was giving all of this stuff. And so we do, I think, 3 a week with all the top community owners. So this isn't, so this is the people actually doing it. And the nice thing with Skool, because we own the platform, we know no one's fronting. We see all the numbers. And so, and all the numbers are public. So no one can claim that they're like, I'm making $1 million a month. They're like, dude, you're right there. I can see I see what you make, right? And so it just keeps everything honest and transparent in an industry that lacks a lot of that. And so my hope also, and Sam's as well, is to bring transparency to an industry that's been very shrouded in just lack of transparency, just lies, honestly, and deception. I would say misrepresentation would be the correct word for that. So we do all that stuff, and we said we'll make it 30 days. And so I'll give you the business explanation behind this. So we did 14 days for free in a 30-day games. That way people have 2 weeks. If they're like, you know what, this isn't working for me, they can dip out. If they do think it's working for them and they finish the games, then the top 10 people fly out to Vegas, and we help them grow their communities and learn from them, see how we can make the product better, things like that. Now, this is the part that might interest you. Well, hopefully that interested you too, but this might interest you. So I got the stats from the first games, and 30.44% of people who finished the first month of the games, so they went to 30 days, made their first dollar online. So just under 1 out of 3 people made their first dollar, or more, obviously, who finished their first month after the Skool Games. And that to me was like the most excited I've ever been finding this out, because I obviously I have so many people in our community who want to start businesses. And I was like, how can we make this as easy as humanly possible? It's like, okay, well, there's no other piece of software that has to get used. You don't have to learn anything else. It processes the money, it helps you with the delivery, it's all in one place. Like there's nothing else that's needed. Like you can run the entire business on the platform, and you can start for free. And so that's what got me really excited about it. And so I'll explain the business model to you guys if you're interested, in terms of I'll explain how Skool works, and I'll explain how the Skool hosts work. So Skool is just a $99 a month platform. And long-term, that's not the monetization play. So I just like to explain where it is. So right now it's $99 a month. And we keep it that way because we just want it to be simple. Like, if we wanted to maximize profit, we would have lots of tiers, and we could do a ton of other things, believe me, to make more money with the system. That's just not the objective right now. The objective right now is to get as many students on the platform and as many teachers on the platform, so that we just create a richer and rich community of content, so that we can tackle that $10 trillion global nut of education. Because if people can go to one place to learn whatever they want from people who are actually doing it, and they'll do it affordably compared to $50,000 a year or whatever CCU charges, that is a bet that I'm willing to make. And so right now we're in growth mode. And so that's the model. It's just however many groups there are is the times 99 is how much money the platform makes. And the platform has been losing money because we've been aggressively reinvesting in getting better and better software engineers and designers and developers to make the product absolutely exceptional. So that's why obviously I wrote a big check into it, because I want it to happen. I want it to crush, and we will. It's doing really well. So we're good there. But let's talk about you. So if you were to start a Skool community, because a lot of people who follow my stuff are like, well, I would like to start a business, and If you think this is okay, then I might give this a shot. So I'll just explain how the business model works. So you've got, this is my Instagram icon. Man, this is going to be tough. Let's see if I know all of them. That's TikTok, I think. And then you got Facebook, right? You got Facebook. All right, whatever. That's good enough. So you got social media. So you got traffic. You got eyeballs. All right. So just think about this like this. You got eyeballs that you have to go get. Now you can get those in any ways you want. You can post. You can run ads. You can do outreach. You can partner with somebody who already has an audience. All of these are ways to fundamentally just get eyeballs. And so then you drive those eyeballs to your Skool page. So this is why this is kind of neat. So I'll explain this to you. So our vision for this is that, like we just turned on ads tracking this last month, so it's kind of exciting, is that if you think about the difference between Shopify and Amazon, okay? So Shopify, let's say I sold pens. I sell these markers, okay? So that's my product. I sell these markers and I sell them on Shopify. Well, I'm gonna have to customize the whole page. I'm gonna have to learn the integrations. I'm gonna have to build all this stuff. But I have a lot more control. All right, so that's the plus is that you get a lot more control, a lot more customization. The downside is it's a lot harder and there's no inherent brand trust. So if you just throw up a Shopify store with pens, why should I buy from you? Not a really compelling reason. Although in the other extreme, you have like Amazon. So I'm the same guy selling pens, but I put it on Amazon. Now I can't control the color, the reviews, I can't control anything. I just know that I have to use the template that Amazon has and I put this on there. But here's an interesting stat for you. So I have a book, I have multiple books, in the $100 million series, $100 million offers, $100 million leads, and another one coming out soon. And so my Shopify page converts at like 2 to 3%, something like that, which is like fairly standard for e-commerce. My Amazon page that has the same book converts at 30%. So 10 times as efficient in terms of converting. Now, Amazon obviously takes its fee for doing the transaction, whatever. But the key point is that because what happens is you start to build inherent trust in the platform. And so as people begin to trust Skool more and do more and more transactions on Skool, then these Skool pages will convert better than any page that you could possibly build on your own because you get to borrow Skool's credibility. That's the key point. And so if you're trying to get into business, like number one way to make lots of money, just have amazing, like a massive, huge brand and an audience. Okay, but if you're trying to get into that, it's like telling a model, like, how do I be successful? It's like, be born beautiful. Like, how do I be born? How to be a great musician? Like, be born a great musician, whatever. Point is that we can actually help arm people who are getting into business by letting them borrow our brand credibility. And because of this, it also becomes way lower technologically in terms of difficulty for somebody who's starting out. Interestingly, it's like if you look at Amazon, look at Zillow, you look at Airbnb, they almost all more or less converge at the same overall layout. You've got a video, right? You've got a video. You usually got a carousel of images. You've got some reviews. For the thing, you've got a buy button. And then usually a handful of bullets about the product. Almost all of the pages look like that. And so, by the way, if you're going to build something, maybe something to consider, that those guys have more traffic and conversion data than anyone on earth. They built it that way for a reason. And so the Skool page looks the same way. That way you can build it that way. So you get your eyeballs whatever way you want. You drive it towards the Skool page, which will probably convert better than anything that you make on your own. And then, you have your community. So you've got all your people inside your community. And they're all happy. And they look like they have dresses on. Cool, whatever. And so then you provide value to those people. And this becomes a recurring revenue stream. And they pay whatever, between $1 and $9,999, whatever per month. And that's it. And the reason I like this model overall too is that it creates a way for people to provide value to people with low risk. Like if you say, hey, I need $50,000 for you to do this thing with me, it's a big risk if you don't know anything, if you haven't consumed anything. But this allows people to have a front end that with low risk, someone can come in, learn about them, get value, and then if they want, they can choose to ascend to higher levels, or that just becomes the main thing and they just drive tons and tons of volume through it. People have won in either of those scenarios. But this is fundamentally like the simplest business model I could possibly imagine for someone who's trying to get started. You don't need inventory, you don't need any third-party integrations, you don't need to know anything about technology, and you can actually make your money on the platform. So this is from Evelyn. I just want to read this to you because I think it'll say better than I can. She said, $99 a month, worth it. I think you need to understand this. I keep seeing posts questioning if $99, this is inside the Skool games, if $99 for a community is worth it and if you should go with a free Facebook group instead. I didn't see or understand this when I started on Skool, but if you want to actually build a community of a meaningful size, you need to hear this. I have deep regrets. Yesterday, I was listening to Matt Thompson and his latest podcast when one thing really struck me that I want to share with you. It's insane how much community management costs you save when you use Skool versus a Facebook group. For context, in my own communities, we manage over 11,000 paying monthly members, and combined with my other business partner, over 20,000. Because there is A, no payment integration, and B, Facebook restricts our paid reach down to an average of 300 out of 6,500 members in our biggest group. So you have this group of people and you can't actually reach them. That sucks. But that's like what's currently out there. And if you want to have payments, it doesn't integrate with anything. You can't do it, right? And so we have to pay a team of people to A, find and remove people who don't pay because Facebook doesn't do that automatically like Skool does. And then B, provide 24-hour workday written support because Skool members, in contrast, Skool members actually see each other's posts and want to help each other out because of the gamification element and the connection that comes from having to start to engage. And so some of the things that Skool has, which is why it's growing at the rate that it is that we've put gamification inside of it. And so people get points for getting likes and getting comments, but to themselves. And so they gain in status in the community, like in real terms. They gain status, and then that status actually unlocks other abilities, like a game. And so the core of the development team at Skool is actually all gaming developers because we wanted to make business fun. And so we wanted to make it like a game because there's so many people that I see, especially younger people, but just people in general, who are absolutely insane at different games. And I'm like, dude, if you just took this level of focus and applied it to business, you would already be a millionaire. Like, no doubt in my mind. But no one's just taken business and tried to turn it into a game. And so that is absolutely the vision of what we're trying to do is how do we make this fun and easy for everyone? How do we just take the bar that's already low and just make it that much lower so that way more people can cross it? Like, you don't have to be this tall to ride this ride anymore. You just have to be this tall. Right? That's the idea. And so she says, honestly, this is so genius. Our community is now one of the community she built on Skool is our most profitable community because one, we don't run ads to it. At the moment, 234 members of net growth in the first month after playing the Skool games, all organically from Skool discovery page in this community. So one of the cool things about Skool is that it's a platform. And so what that means is that like when you have a community, this ranks in our directory of communities. And so just like Google ranks web pages, we rank communities. And so people will go to learn things. They want to learn how to do plumbing at home, or they want to learn how to fix their roof, or they want to learn how to play ping pong, or the watercolor, whatever. And they go there and click watercoloring groups, and then the groups that come up, they join. But the people who own those groups didn't generate that customer. We did. Again, this is you borrowing off of Skool. And so we can actually help people get customers as well, which is one of the cool things that I like about the platform. She had 234 new members net. So that means net of churn, people who left, and she added 234 without any paid ads. Pretty cool. And so the second reason that it's more profitable is that we haven't promised 24-hour written support and don't deliver it because members are helping members and it's working amazingly here. I'm really mind blown. This would never have been possible with a Facebook group. It might be the amazing community, the lower cost, or the fact that I can finally reach my own community again, but I'm becoming a super fan. I say that because I think she can say it better than I can, is that if you actually want to have a business, and this is the hard part about being a beginner, is that if you actually are successful, then you will run into new problems later. And so Skool, unfortunately, like for me as a marketer, this is the worst position to market from because no one is suffering from the problem yet, but you will suffer from the problem if you actually win. It's like if you lose weight, you're going to have to change the clothes out of your wardrobe because nothing's going to fit anymore. But people are still so focused on losing weight that they don't think about the next thing. But I'm telling you that if you follow the steps and you become one of the 30%, right, of people who make their first dollar, right, 30.44, make their first dollar, well then when you make your second dollar and fifth dollar and thousandth and 10,000th dollar, quickly you're like, oh shoot, I wish I had started this on a platform that already knew how to scale. And with Skool, you can start the right way from the get-go, rather than have to switch later. And so, big picture. I decided to make this bet on Skool because it was growing without me based on word of mouth. It's harnessing a huge trend in the industry in terms of education overall. I personally know a lot about education, have made a lot of my wealth in education. And so I felt uniquely qualified to help the company grow. Fourth, my brand has been built and my mission has been about making real business education accessible for everyone. And until now, I haven't seen anything that actually really, anybody or any team that even came close to the level of dedication that Skool's team has, and also the level of talent. Exceptionally talented, stacked developer team, like A+ talent. And we're able to make a platform right now that handles currently millions of users every month. Millions, many millions of users every month. And it just works seamlessly. And so for those reasons, and because now I have the data to support this, so just to be really clear, the first four things is why I made the bet. The fifth one, which is what I just showed you, the 30.44% of people who make their first dollar after their first month of school, like that's what just gets me even more jazzed that it was the right call. And for those of you who are business owners, as a side note, almost every existing business would benefit from having a community in one place. So whether you're a real estate agent or where you just want to have a place that you can just spoil your customers, they get to know each other, you make introductions, that means you add value. And the cool thing with communities is that the members add value to each other. That's like what the concept of a network effect is there's a network effect. Like people each, when somebody else gets added to the group, it actually adds value to everyone else. So if there's one person in a community, there's no network. If there's two, great. When you add a third person, both of these people benefit from the new party. When you add a fourth person, all three benefit from the fourth. And that's one of the cool parts about this. And so if you're a business owner, and like I said, whether you're a real estate agent or you're a plumber or you're a gym owner or you have a salon and you do hair, it doesn't really matter. Having a place where all your customers can be together without worrying about like the craziness of like Facebook and some of the other social media platforms that exist, and know that you can curate the entire experience just the way you want it, and you can reach 100% of your customers every single time you make a post. And you can reach out to them, you can DM them, you can do all these things. You can host the content, you can have calls, regular basis, all that kind of stuff. And they are incentivized to engage in there. And that's one of the big lifts of the platform, is that people are incentivized to engage. And I'll tell you, it's wildly addicting, because I'm obviously in Skool as well, and I'm in the Skool Games community for everybody who starts. It's 14 days, it's free. I want to see my little ranking go up. I was like, I own the platform. I was like, I gotta fucking have high ranking. And so I'm in there posting and engaging more than I do on any other platform. More or less, that is why I decided to make this big bet and make it public. Because I do think this will be my one of the paths that they create $1 billion or plus in net worth. And I hope that people look back at this video and be like, wow, Alex looks so dumb then, but now he's a billionaire, so it sounds cool. And so I wanted to have that. And so I'm committing. I'm going for monthly. I'd like to give updates of the cool stuff that's happening, kind of from a business perspective, so that you can see us build this $1 billion, $10 billion, $100 billion enterprise. So let's do this. So I have my team here. They just heard me talk through that. And so I just told them, write down your questions. And so when I'm done, I'll answer them. And so this is the questions that they had while I was presenting this. So you get it. Like, we really just do this in real time. All right, so shoot.
The traditional education, it's very centralized, right? So it's a big player, billions and billions of dollars. Is the e-learning more distributed? Is it an easier playing field for the little guys who don't know what they're doing yet?
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of markets, basically, it's a cycle of centralization, decentralization that happens over and over and over again. And so right now, like, all the power was centralized. And so if you look at like Rome, right, the Roman Empire, like, it was all centralized. And then you start the barbarians at the gates that are all these tribes that are independently, none of them could take on the power of Rome. But in aggregate, attacking from all these different angles, they just start nibbling away at it. So a lot of empires and centralization doesn't lose in one big coup. I mean, obviously in the political scene, sometimes it does, but it often erodes. So it's little itty bitty snippets, little crumbs that get broken off, but the cookie is so big that the crumbs are actually the size of this building, right? Like, they're big crumbs. And the reason that the smaller competitor can beat the larger competitor right now is two main things. Well, I'll say three. One is, to beat the larger competitor, you don't have to offer more classes than Harvard. You just have to know one thing better than how they teach that one thing, or whether they teach it at all. And so if I am the best pottery maker, and I have a whole Instagram or social media or YouTube channel, whatever, of me making these insane pots, who are people in general going to want to learn from? Just generic teacher number 6 at CCU who teaches pottery, or the largest pottery YouTube or Instagram person in the world? Well, probably that person. So number one. Number two, what's the cost difference? So this is the cost component. New entrants can enter because they don't have to have a building, they don't have to employ anyone. If you have an iPhone and you have an internet connection, you can get famous, you can distribute. And so distribution, which is point 3, so cost of delivery is 0. Cost of distribution is 0. And so that's the big thing, is that distribution has been disrupted, which is fundamentally what the internet did in general to all industries. It's just at this moment, and I honestly think you guys want I'll try not to put my political cap on, but the reason that the formal education industry has not been disrupted, or has been more slow to be disrupted than other ones, is because the government props it up. People have interest-free loans they don't have to pay for 10 years. If that weren't there, they would already be gone. The fact that the government fronts $200,000, $100,000, $50,000, and the way it actually works is that they back lenders. So they say, if these people don't pay, we'll pay you back. There's more nuance to it, but fundamentally, the government backs the loans. If it doesn't cost people money to buy something, then the incremental cost appears to be 0. It's obviously way more, and I've made videos about it. But it feels like 0 because you sign a piece of paper and then you get to go to Disneyland for kids. And you don't have to do anything for 4 years, and you just get free money, right? So you have this discount, this big bad thing that happens years from now, but you get all the good things today. And that just leverages human behavior. Like 1 cookie now, more people will take it than 2 cookies later. It just is what it is. But also, side note, successful people wait for 2 cookies. Won't get into that. The reason that centralization has even existed is because of government subsidized payments. But the new creator can win because their content will be more specific and deeper, and they will have proof and evidence that they are the best at it. The cost of creating that content and or the deliverable, which is now digital education, courses, calls, whatever, is also free. And the third one is that the cost of distributing that is also free. And so the barrier to entry is pretty much just the cost of the few pieces of technology you have to rope together to have a business. And the crazy thing about this is that the irony is that it's never been lower risk to start a business than today. And so if you rewind 100 years in 1924, you would have had to save for 15 years, have a house, use your house as leverage to go to the bank and say, will you help me start this bakery? And then the bakery had real cost. And if you went out of business, you went bankrupt, you lost your reputation, and then that was it. You'd be known as a failure for the rest of your time. Now, because of that, the stakes were higher, people tried way harder, but fewer people did. And so the trade is now, it's way lower barrier to entry, and also a lot of people who have no work ethic can get into it. But it also requires the same amount of work, but less risk. You still have to work just as hard as you did however long ago, but you don't need to risk as much to get in. And I think that's pretty cool. And so fundamentally, that's why the creator economy overall is just booming, because one person won't bring down the system, but 1 million tiny players will bring down the whole thing, because they each will beat that one big player at their tiny sliver.
Could you break down the math? How much money could I actually generate?
Well, so I want to be really clear about claims, implied claims, anything like that. All businesses involve risk in general. So if you pay for a platform that's $99 a month, then your risk is $99 a month. All right, just to be clear. Beyond that, the amount of money you make is subject to how hard you try, how much you promote. But if you were to look at, and I think this is a decent proxy, if you look at some of the largest communities that exist in general on the internet, outside of Skool, you've got many, many communities that are at $1 million, $5 million, $10 million a month. And it's because you have a single player, free distribution, and basically as long as you have a good enough product and a ton of traffic to bring people into that product, then people will pay to be in there and see. Well, let me give you a little tidbit. So a lot of people are like, well, what do I put inside of a community? I'm gonna give you a little tactical nugget here. All right, so ProfitWell, which is owned by a buddy of mine who just sold it for $250 million, did a really cool 14,000 business survey of what were the features that people were buying that had the highest willingness to pay. So WTP is willingness to pay. And then I can't remember what these 4 were, but basically they looked at all these different features that people had in communities. and which ones people wanted to buy the most versus things they thought were par for course versus things that they didn't really care about at all. And so it's kind of like care versus willingness to pay. So if you have a lot of care, so care, let's put it this way. So they care a lot and they're really willing to pay. This is where you want to be. They care a lot, but they're not willing to pay means you have to do it. It's kind of like protein in your supplement stack. Like people care a lot, but you're not really willing to pay an arm and a leg for it because it's almost like an expected, right? And then on the flip side, this would be the worst thing, which is like no one cares and no one's willing to pay. So don't do anything in here. And so they had things like discounts, like if you have a community where you put like exclusive discounts, like merch. Merch is one that was over here. Like some people like merch, some people don't. Like some people are willing to pay. On the care spectrum, not really high. Over here, and this is where it gets really interesting or important. Newsletter was something that people like kind of expected for a community. They want some sort of regular communication, but they weren't like willing to pay a huge amount for it. But the big three that were in here, and so I include this one as my number 4, by the way, because I want to make sure I do that, right? Is they wanted exclusive access. So that means Q&As, talking to experts. They want to be closer. Think proximity, either digitally or in person, but just for the sake of this conversation for digital community, it's like they want to be able to ask you questions. And so that means like they post and you respond, or you hop on a call and you respond. Any of those things would count. So number 1 was access. Number 2 was content, meaning they like some of the stuff that you put publicly. They just want more of that stuff privately that they can't get somewhere else. And so you have exclusive access, exclusive content as the second kind of bucket. Courses would fall under this, trainings, things like that. And the final one, which surprised me actually, was events. And so people in a community want to be able to meet up. They want to meet up in person. You can also do virtual events, of course, but I think the real power is if you can meet people in person, have them fly in or fly out to them, depending on the size of the community. And so these are the big 4 that people put into communities to drive value. Is that I will be the one talking to you, I'll respond to your stuff via DM, I'll respond to your posts inside the feed, or I'll have calls on some regular cadence where you can expect some sort of response time from me. Content, here's some additional training, here's some course, here's some whatever that I can put in here to provide even more value. Now the content can also be in feed, meaning you can just write articles. So in the school games, I prefer to be written. And so I actually write long articles, like probably 2 times a month on one component of the school games. Like, hey, if you're using ads, this is what I would consider. If you're getting partners, here's a script that I wrote for you guys to go get partners, right? So that would be content. And then events is that you meet people together. Like that one's pretty self-explanatory. And the newsletter, you can actually just take some of this content, put it in written format, email it out, right? Very, very easy. And so Skool helps you do all 4 of those things all in one place.
When you were running Gym Launch, did community feel like a really obvious thing that increased a lot of value for users? Like I'm wondering if that...
Oh yeah, so this is really interesting. So Sam owned consulting.com, which was a relatively large education business. And he found something really interesting, which is I think one of the catalysts for him actually innovating the product that would eventually become Skool, is that when he looked at his user data, he saw that people would buy a course, but they would log in, they'd watch a handful of videos, and then they would spend the rest of their time in the group. And so they would make content in the group, they'd ask questions in the group, almost everything. The community really was the group, way less so the course. But everything that was out there was focused on building the course rather than the community being the core component. And so he flipped the priority and said, well, what if we made community the main thing and just had all the things that people like that surround communities as, I want to say add-ons, but like integrated into it, but the community is the hub. And so, yes, with Gym Launch, the community was obviously a huge part of it. I think it works with any kind of business that's service-related or education-related. Like I still consider the gyms semi-education because a lot of people there are trying to learn more about how to eat healthy, work out better, learn form, learn cooking, recipes, meal prep. There are a lot of other things that go into that lifestyle. And so a useful question for any business owner is like, what lifestyle am I bringing people towards? And so like if I were teaching music, there's a musician's lifestyle. There's probably like a way that they schedule their time. There's tools that they use. There's ways that they practice. All of those things go along with the identity that someone would have as a musician, as somebody who's a fitness person, as an author, right? And so one of the great like business strategies is think like, what is the I am statement that accompanies my product? So like I am a, and then what comes along with that? And so if you can build a community around that of people who also identify with that label, you have a much deeper connection with them because they all identify the same way.
How does making a school group or taking this business model compare to, let's say, something like drop shipping or e-commerce, like any other thing that
Yeah,
do?
it depends on the goal, right? And so if you're trying to make money on the internet, you want the thing with the simplest business model that has the lowest risk and the fewest moving parts. And I think Skool has that. I would say I'm quote biased because I'm a co-owner, but like I honestly, I would never risk my reputation to say something I just wouldn't do it. So you can choose to believe that or not. From a selling perspective, if you wanted to have like a big exit in a business, you have to prove that you have an asset that is sellable that works without you. Now, a school community or community in general, if it's built off the face of a founder, is going to have the same issues of key man risk that any business that is built on a founder would have. And so you would have to build a school community differently if you had that intention. Now, the vast majority of people that consume my stuff are trying to just make a lot more money than they currently are, whether they're by quitting their job to start something or within their business, they just want to grow it. Now, some people want to sell, which, hey, acquisition.com, that's what we're here for. Give us a call. The main thing that someone wants to buy in a business is long-term recurring revenue. Is you want to know that the people that are paying today are going to pay 4 years from now. And so Skool is it a sellable asset or not a sellable asset? It's just like any other recurring business. How good you are at it will dictate how recurring it is and how valuable it is. And so I'll give you an example. There's let's say an acquaintance of mine who has a business that services mechanic shops. So really niche, he's got 10 locations, so he knows what he's doing. He's not somebody who like started one, wasn't making money, and then started, like those who can't do teach. He didn't go that model. Like he has 10 locations, he's legit, he's done a handful of roll-ups, like a very legitimate player. And because he is legit, he has a business that does, I think, just under $50 million a year, all on recurring community, right? And so if you have a niche expertise that has super high value, and compared to everything else in the marketplace, you have all these benefits that no one else has, people will stay and they'll continue to pay. And this guy is growing every single year. And so if I'm looking to acquire a company, yes, I'm super interested. Now on the flip side, if you create a community and you don't provide value and people cancel in 2 months, then no, it's not going to be valuable. You'll make an income because you'll know how to market and you'll convert you just do number of new conversions per month times average order value, and you'll get how much money you're going to make in terms of income. But I would say this is that if you're trying to get going, don't worry about that. Get the first dollar across the bridge. You'll learn so many skills in just doing that. The next steps will become clear to you once you take the first steps. Because it's really easy to get overwhelmed in the beginning. Just get the first dollar across the line.
You have a huge international audience.
Yeah.
And I wonder if part of this was being able to make business accessible to people who weren't.
Dude, 1,000%. Yeah. So we have right now 50% or something like that of our total audience is international. And so having something that could also service all of those people was a huge boon to why this also made sense for me. Versus like if I had a physical product thing and we were only in the US, then I would automatically cut out probably 70% of the people that I could potentially help. Oh, and this is, and a great point too, is that if you make content on the internet, for example, as a way to get customers, you will also have a certain percentage of your audience that is international. And having like a community, for example, as long as everyone speaks the same language, you can provide value to them without having to worry about international borders, the tariffs, taxes, like you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Believe me, I've done international shipping, it's a nightmare.
Also, anyone can join the Skool Games and read your posts and potentially come out to the headquarters.
Yeah.
Versus becoming a portfolio company is
Yeah, and one of the other things that I thought was kind of cool is obviously the only companies that we like really directly interact with are companies that we own. But by having the Skool Games and the top 10 every month of the Skool Games, and the cool thing about the Skool Games, not to push this too hard, but is that it's off of new recurring revenue, meaning it's not like, oh, these guys have been doing Skool for 5 years and they win every month. If you win, you get taken off, number one. And number two, it's based on the new added revenue. So you can start, and in fact, March of last month, I think 4 or 5 of the people who won started that exact month. Now, some people started a handful of months ago and then took it seriously. They went pro. They were like, this is the month I'm gonna try and win, and they really pushed it. And then they did get on the top 10, and then they're flying out to Vegas to hang out, talk about growing their business. But 4 of them, literally, they're like, yep, I saw an ad, and it was February 28th, and then I was like, I'm starting on the 1st of March, and they just did it. One guy met his business partner, I think, in Skool, and was like, oh, you know Hormozi? He's a foreign guy. He was like, you know Hormozi? Yeah, he's got the Skool games. I'm doing it. And so he's like, let's win. And they met, and one guy handled the delivery, the other guy handled the promotion, a great partnership, and they came in 10th place. They like just got in. It was really cool, very cool. Russian guy. Yeah, really cool.
Do you want to talk a bit about like why Sam?
Yeah, I mean, Sam, he's obsessive. And so this is really interesting for you. So people have probably heard the term OCD, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder. First off, I would drop the D and just say somebody's obsessive and compulsive. It doesn't mean it's a disorder unless it affects their life negatively. And I would say many, quote, OCD people do better than people who are not. And so why would it be a disorder? But neither here nor there. So you have two components there. You have obsessiveness and you have compulsiveness. I think the ideal makeup of an entrepreneur is somebody who is obsessed but not compulsive. Is that you can literally hold your attention on this goal for years and not compulsively change direction, not compulsively need to do things to quell that. You just are obsessed with this one thing. And Sam is obsessed. He wants to build the absolute best product that is the most fun, that makes making money online and making your first business as easy as possible. And seeing that obsession and his attention to detail throughout the many months of conversation that we had before we decided to, before I decided to buy in as a co-owner of the company and then obviously promote it publicly, I saw his obsession and I felt like it mirrored mine in a different vertical. And I think from a partnership perspective, that's what you want, is that you want someone who's as obsessed with you, as obsessed with whatever they're good at as you are with whatever you're good at. What you don't want is somebody who's as obsessed with the same things as you are, because then one of you isn't necessary. And so perfect partnerships, typically there's three big veins in a business. You've got product, you've got promotion, and you've got people. And so you want somebody who represents all three of those. Now, to be clear, the equity distribution doesn't need to be third. You could have an employee who's exceptional. It's just those are the functions that have to be maintained for a business to grow.
My last question is a little like Easter egg for anyone who's made it all the way to the end of the video. From the first couple of Skool games, are there any like really amazing tips or tactics that you've seen from people building great communities and scaling really quickly?
So instead of tips or tactics, I will say that there's a lot of ways to win the game. And I think that is probably the meta lesson, is that I have seen people on the Skool games who only did email outbound. They literally did cold email, got on the phone, and sold people into their community. Now, obviously, they'd have a higher ticket, so it's more like $500 a month or $1,000 a month for their community, but they won the Skool games that way. There are people who already had organic audiences and then just like basically made the CTA and said, hey, put a ton of bonuses, ton of value in there, and they were able to take an audience that they basically weren't making anything from and then turn it into a community that they also got paid for. So they both deepen the community and make an income from it. So that's like the people who had audiences. There's also people who ran ads to make this work. There's people, and this is probably my favorite model, is there's these two guys, Minx and Fahad, who came in, I think, third last time. And neither of these guys have social media presences at all. But they reached out to an influencer that had like 50,000 followers, and they said, hey, we'll do everything. Like we'll edit your videos, we'll prompt you, we'll record it, and we'll do the CTAs, we'll do everything, and we'll make this community, and we'll manage it. And they grew him from 50 to 3 million. So they were good at what they did, and they also started the Skool games in the first month they added like 40,000 in recurring revenue, or 50,000 or something like that in the first month in recurring revenue, not like recurring revenue. So my point is like if I had to start over tomorrow at zero, and I didn't have any money, and I had no connections, like no one knows me, I have no reputation. The model that I would use to win the games is I would use cold reach outs to people who are influencers to ask them to partner with me. Because of that, because the hit rate, you only need one. So from a success percent, you literally just need one. And the key, and this is the pro tip, so if you want an Easter egg, this is it. When you do these reach outs, every position has an advantage and a disadvantage. So I'm gonna zoom out for a second and explain the advantage of the underdog. So when I had Gym Launch, I had a guy so I had Alan too, my software company, and so this is kind of funny, but I had agencies using one of our unique selling props in their business that was trying to compete with my business, but we were the underlying infrastructure. Anyways, and so they were like, everybody wants to buy your thing because you're the big established player, right? And I was like, dude, when I came in, I wasn't the big established player, so what did I say then? So when you're coming in, you say, man, to Alex, you're just a number. Like you're never gonna talk to him. Like he just owns this thing. Like it's just some representative that he trained who's gonna be on your account. Like it's gonna be nothing. With me, you get all my attention. I'm gonna be fully focused. I only have 2 other customers. Like you're gonna have all my attention. That's the advantage. Now, if I'm Alex, I'm gonna say, this kid's in his mom's basement. He has no idea what he's doing. There's a reason that he only has 2 customers because he doesn't know how to provide value consistently. We've systematized this thing so we can consistently produce the result. Everybody has an advantage and everybody has a disadvantage. And so if you're getting in, even if you have 0 customers, here's what I would say. I would say, listen, I started this with the intention of not having lots of customers. I want to find a partner and I'm going to devote everything I have to just this. Anybody else is going to split you and you're going to be an account to them. You'll get a rep. But with me, it's just me. And I'm going to build this whole thing myself. Like, you'll have my cell phone. We'll talk every day. We can do whatever you want. I'm going to build this thing. And the way you prove it, this is the key point, this is the real nug, is that when you do that outreach and you say it with that perspective, when you get on the phone, fucking prepare. Don't get on the phone and be like, yeah, I was thinking maybe we like partner up on this thing. Like, you have this value and I have nothing. Like, this should be a great deal, right? Like, no. You get on and you do so much work ahead of time. Like, DM the people who are commenting on their stuff. Get on the phone with them. Say, hey, what kind of community would you want? Take the notes, record the call. If you do 5 of those interviews and then you hop on that call with that influencer and you say, hey, I made this deck. Do you mind if I show it to you? They're gonna be like, you made a deck about my business? And you're like, yeah. I can walk you through kind of the strategy. I was thinking about like the phases of rollout that we could do and what I've already talked to your customers about what they want. They're gonna be fascinated by the fact that you might know something about their customers that they don't. And you know how you do that? You work. It's work. That's how you do it. But you literally work so much that when you make the claim that you will work hard for them, you are demonstrating that you will work hard for them, and so they will believe you. Because fundamentally, every person just wants a hardworking partner, right? You just have to get them to believe that. Now, anyone can say, I'm gonna work my butt off, I'm all in, but the proof is stacked against you because you have nothing. And so you have to make up for that. Now, and here's the caveat. What if influencer number 1 says no? You do it again. And when you get on the phone with influencer number 2, guess what you do? You show the thing you built for influencer number 1 as an example. And then you show theirs. And if they say no, what do? When you go to influencer number 2, you show the stuff from influencer number 1 and number 2, and then you show theirs. So you're actually building out a portfolio of stuff, but you have an incentive to make it exceptional because you know you're gonna present it to somebody. So like, you win either way. The only way you lose is if you don't work. And I promise you that on a long enough time horizon, if you reach out to these people and you get on the phone with one, and I don't think, this is a key point, I would not shoot outside of your league, all right? Like if you've never done this before, I wouldn't say go after a 5 million person account. I just don't think that's a smart idea. But I think if you go after a 50 or 100,000, 150,000 person account, and to be clear, you wanna make sure they're getting engagement. It's not like bot account or whatever, but you want a real person who, and like you wanna know the real secret? Go to somebody you already follow. Go to somebody you already like. Because then you won't be BSing. When you talk to them, you're like, I love this stuff about your brand. I think this would fit in this way. And you know, I had that thing 2 months ago? I think this would be perfect with that. And I talked to a bunch of my friends who also follow you, and I talked to these other people just so it wasn't just my friends. And these are the things that they were looking for. And I think that if we did this, here's an estimate, like if we convert 1% of your audience over, it's this much a month. I think that would be interesting. And so you probably follow 2,000 people now anyways. So just pick 100 of them, or pick 50. Or if you really want to be targeted, pick 10. And think to yourself, if I had to get one of these 10, what would I do? And then do that. And I promise you, you'll get one. And then from there, you have a partner. And then you get to leverage the fact that they spent 5 years building their audience, and you get to have a part of that today, even if you only get 20%. Right now, of course, you have to negotiate that piece. But my recommendation is don't be greedy up front. Get the deal done. Get the reps under your belt, because also being real, you don't know what you're doing. And so I wouldn't try and ask for the majority of this until you have some reps under your belt. Right? So take a smaller percentage, use it to build your portfolio in terms of your proof that you're good. You'll learn a zillion things along the way, and you're gonna get paid to learn. And so if all this Skool stuff sounded interesting to you, I do have an easy offer for you. You can go to skool.com/games. And what we have inside for you is we have 3 calls a week with guys who are actually making tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on Skool, using the platform, teaching you exactly what they did step by step. So we've got calls for you of other people. We've got a community of others to help you out. And I think the benefit here is that you get people who are both starting with you at 0, but people who are also at the end of the race cheering you on. And so you kind of have like 3 types of accountability. So you've got peer accountability, you've got kind of like coach accountability because people are rooting for you, but then you also have alumni accountability, people who've already been through it. And then I made a course that I put in there. It's free. It just shows you how to do this, the different ways to play the game, the different kind of like avatars that you can self-select. Maybe I'm somebody who likes making content. Maybe I'm somebody who's better at ads. Maybe I'm somebody who already has an audience. Maybe I'm somebody who likes outbound. Maybe I'm somebody who likes to have a partner. So I break down all the different paths that you can use to really start making money on the internet with what I think is the easiest business model out there. The best part, in my opinion, is that all of this stuff, obviously we have the prizes, the top 10 get to fly out, so hopefully you can do that. But you only need 3 people, and I just did a 1-day full deep dive. It's 8 hours of me just helping the top 10 communities scale, and those recordings are live right now. So if I had a $100,000 mastermind or something, this would be it, except it's yours and it's free. And here's my incentive for you. If you just get 3 people into your group. All right, so I like to put like as low as I possibly could. You get 3 people into your group, you can get your friends in there. I don't care if you cheated, it's fine. Get 3 people into your community, and you get all the downloads from that. And all of this stuff, you can start for free for 14 days, just so you can get a feel for it. You can go in there, download everything, and steal it all for all I care. All right, but my hope is that you actually use it so you can make your first dollar. And I will just repeat this one stat because I think it's the most important stat I think of the business right now, is that 30.4% of people who finish their first month of the Skool games make their first dollar online. It's about as compelling as I can get. So check it out, skool.com/games. See you there. I'm also on the inside of the group too, so hit me up, tag me, whatever.